won't be really paying a lot for fuel. Meanwhile, let's go out to the West Coast again. I believe she is hunkered down with the rest of California, not allowed to even leave and look out the window now, I believe the latest
Is that against the rules, too?
I think you're not even allowed to look outside now. But Ramona Shelburne, the great ESPN reporter covering the NBA and basically journalism in general. Ramona, how are you? Thanks for coming on.
I'm good. It's funny that you said that we can't look out the window because I sometimes, I tend to do these interviews like in my bedroom now, and I have like the curtains drawn.
Well, we just had our friend Colleen Wolfe on from the NFL Network, and she said she was doing her show from the bedroom. So bedrooms are now, are they essential parts of your house, the go-to place to do broadcasting?
It's weird. It's like, so my son is 18 months old, so I just got him down for a nap, and his room is too close to the office. So I need to go to the bedroom where if I'm talking too loud, he won't hear me, So I'm in the bedroom with like the curtains drawn, and it's not dark in here, but I have definitely done interviews where it's dark in here, and I'm just like, ooh, this is the fastest way to depression if we keep this up, huh?
Exactly. Wow, that's got to be tough.
I got to open some windows, huh? I got to open the curtains.
So now, if he wakes up during this segment, will it be our fault because he can't hear us?
He can't hear you. No, I'm far enough away, and my husband's on duty, so he's like, if he wakes up, my husband will get him. But
okay.
I'm the one who puts him down, which is a whole process. You know how that goes.
Now, I've asked everybody, and obviously most of our guests have been from California. We're here on the East Coast, where the weather's miserable, and you can't go anywhere anyway. And so there's no basketball here. Ben Simmons' girlfriend now apparently is out there messing around with Devin Booker, according to TMZ. So that's all crazy. The NBA is absolutely out of control right now. What's the latest? Because we saw that they're talking about Disney World and maybe going down there. That seems feasible. ESPN and Disney, obviously, in partnerships with the NBA. There's a lot of property down there at the Walt Disney Complex. Does that make sense to you, and you think that's a possibility? Yeah,
look, I've heard a couple of different possibilities that, it goes around with agents and players, executives, et cetera, like, league folks too. There's this idea that, Florida, they've already kind of cleared sports to play, right? Vegas has said, that their local government, as you've heard, they're open for business, or they want to be at least. California, I don't think they're going to let any events happen here for a while, at least with fans or a certain number of people, right? But I think it's there's a fundamental question, okay, and this is what it really lays out. Are we going to bubble or not bubble, right? Like, we all talk about this idea of, okay, will the players just live in hotels and go to and from games and practices, and that's how you keep the contacts low, and that's how you can test everybody and you can feel the most safe. But that comes at a pretty heavy price for personal freedoms, for your family, for everybody involved. And it also requires a level of trust in your teammates and everybody else in the bubble, right? So what level of surveillance are you willing to put up with? Are you willing to put up with, like, a monitor? Are you willing to put up with cameras? Are you willing to put up with security people checking to make sure that, nobody's coming over, right? How long can you go without seeing your family? Like, and I don't want to be, shocking in saying this, but, we're talking about grown men who are not going to see their wives or girlfriends or whoever it is for a while, and people have certain physical and spiritual needs, okay? Like, this is an issue, right? And I don't know that all the players are really comfortable with this yet, this idea of really having this strict bubble to be a part of. So the Disney World, Las Vegas, like these kinds of ideas, it's an idea, but I think that they're searching for a way to expand this a little bit, to make it a little more, I don't want to say humane, that's not the right word, but to make it a little more feasible for players to be gone that long and to be in the environment that long.
But, the Disney property, there's so many hotels, so you get, the family, the wife and the kids get a room, and then the girlfriend gets another room, maybe in another building. One's in the Swan, the other one's in the Dolphin, one's at the D.
Everybody's got to have their testing, though. That's the thing.
Well, yeah, no, by then, by June, I think by June, they'll have this down to where, you can get the 5-minute tests. and things of that nature. I'm trying to look positively, and I know you are too.
I am too. I'm actually an optimist too. I am too, because I think there is ways of doing this. It's not just about look, I actually believe all the sports leagues can get as many tests as they want. Mm-hmm. It's just a political situation right now where, it's hard to divert tests away from people who really need them to be checking and rechecking basketball players just so you can have a season, right? It's hard to make that argument right now. When the cases start to fall, when we kind of come down on the other side of the curve, I think that's an easier argument to have, right? I think that's an easier case to make of, justifying the amount of tests this would really take. I just think we're a couple of weeks away from that at least, to where we can have that conversation, and it isn't charged with taking tests away from people who are, in cities and places where they really need them.
Well, Ramona, I saw where Mark Cuban was quoted a few days ago saying that he doesn't think we're really ready for this yet, or something, to paraphrase. Have you talked to any players? Are any players on record as saying, hey, because I know there's players in Major League Baseball who have voiced concerns and saying that they wouldn't really be interested in doing one of those proposed, sequestering situations, and we've heard Premier League players over in England, soccer, are kind of scared about it. Anybody on record yet with the NBA as far as the players?
I remember Chris Paul did a conference call with some reporters in Oklahoma City, and he didn't say no. He didn't say it was like a personal thing, but he basically said he would want to make sure he's not comfortable with this idea right now. Players say, I'll see if I can find the quote for you. But it was to the effect, just putting voice to the idea that it was. Here, I'll read you the quote. He said, "There's so many layers that would have to come into play for that to even happen. We would have to know exactly what that would look like, and there's a lot of hypotheticals out there. That's great that everybody's brainstorming, and it's nice that everybody wants us to play. But I think the safety of the players, their families, and everyone, all that comes before any of that." That's kind of a long way of saying that I'm not so sure about that idea. Right?
The interesting thing, we remember it was 50 days ago that sports shut down on March 11th to the day, 1,200 hours without sports. Wow. Imagine that. So the bottom line is, remember, it was the first players that we heard about were NBA players with the Portland Trailblazers. Remember that night? The two Portland Trailblazer players, and then everybody immediately
Utah Jazz.
I'm sorry,
the
Rudy
Utah
Gobert,
Jazz,
Rudy Gobert, and then that became an issue between the teammates. But then they were okay, and then so everybody, which was surprising. Remember, this is the early days when nobody knew that there were tests available, and they tested like everybody from both teams in the same night, and we had results right away. And now here we are, almost 2 months later. 50 days later, and people are like, well, there's no tests. So some people are getting tested, and obviously a lot of people aren't.
Yeah, I think there's the issue with testing, and at least early on, was really a big issue because there just really weren't that many tests in there. The conditions to even give a test, you had to be symptomatic and have known contact and on. Now, in California, we just announced in Los Angeles, anybody, whether you're symptomatic or not, can go get a free test. There's the testing's really come online. They've really manufactured a lot more. It's come up more. I just saw our mayor announce that. You could go to one of those clinics. You just have to have a note from your doctor saying you want to get tested, and you can get it. And so I think the more we see testing available publicly everywhere it needs to be available, the less of an issue that it becomes to use tests on basketball players, baseball players, et cetera, right? And I do think that's getting better. Maybe not everywhere, but at least in enough places to where that the political issue of that's going to change. I'll tell you what, though, the NBA has been the quietest of all of the leagues in terms of its planning. You've heard ideas come out of baseball, right, with the 3 divisions and the 3 different spots, hockey, et cetera. Adam Silver's been very disciplined in his messaging. He won't even open the door. It doesn't matter how many ways you ask the question, he won't even open the door to anyone when we talk about it. And he did a conference call a couple weeks ago even. But I know that the NBA has a ton of planning that's been going on when and if we get closer to a place where it makes sense to open back up, right? They're just not going to put anything like that, make any of that public or get any real serious about anything until the country and until the world feels like it's in a safer place. So it's not that they're trying to rush back or not rush back. they're keeping it close to the vest. Like, they're planning. Everybody's planning, right? And I think a lot of players do want to play again, especially if you're on a team like the Lakers or the Clippers, who, they're right in the thick of it, right? They're right. I know non-playoff teams. Maybe Steve Kerr gave voice to that the other day. He said, we kind of assume our season's over. I don't know if that's wishful thinking or speaking it into being or whatever it is, but that is. I think it's more likely that if the NBA does come back, it will be like a play-in tournament for the last playoff spots. Like, I don't know that we need to finish out the last 15 games of the regular season.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, we all agree. Ramona Shelburne joining us from ESPN out on the West Coast with the baby sleeping right now. How long does an 18-month-old sleep before they get up and get cranky? Because my kids are grown. My son had a baby, and he's only like 4 months old, so they're up all the time.
Oh, yeah, they're up all the time. Well, look, I don't want to jinx it, so I'm going to knock on wood as I talk to you and say this. He was in a really good pattern where he'd sleep from about 1 to 3 every day, and it was just like, oh, wow, 2-hour nap. Like, that's beautiful, right? Like, how good would you feel if you had a 2-hour nap every day, right?
Exactly. By the way, John Gruden just asked.
Knock on wood if you're with me.
Knock on wood if you're with me. Come on. Knock on wood.
Yeah, knock on wood, right? So, but then the last 2 days, he's fought. I love that. I love the John Gruden quote. He's fought his nap. He slept too long at night and then wasn't tired for his nap. And we didn't get a nap the last 2 days, so that's why I'm hitting I'm knocking on the wood as I'm saying, okay? Because I got him down for a nap. Mommy's like the nap whisperer, and we're into hour 2 here, so we're hoping he stays down for another half hour at least.
No, I agree. That's awesome. I agree with the play. Maybe have a play-in, because there's a couple seedings that have to be figured out. But the good thing about the NBA, and we've talked about this, is that even if they finish the season, play a couple games, and then play the playoffs, they don't have to start their season again until Christmas Day, and then have a season that goes a little deeper into the year. But everybody doesn't pay it. Most people don't pay attention to the NBA till Christmas Day anyway, so they have to have 3 months off, I think is the rule, right? When their season's over, they have to have 3 months off, even though they've had over 50 days off. Yeah, and I think, look, the NBA has been consulting with, the former Surgeon General, and there's a man named David Ho. He is the head of, he basically was the one who helped solve the HIV/AIDS crisis a number of years ago. He developed all the antivirals for that. It's not solved it, but really did some incredible research. That he was Times Person of the Year. Those are their medical advisors. They're incredible. And I think the NBA is in a position where they know the science. They've known they were in a lot of ways ahead of a lot of sports because they had 200 employees in China who were experiencing this back in January, right? So that's part of the reason the NBA was ahead of people in terms of planning for this and being able to test people early on. I think that they have a pretty good read on what's happening with this, but also what's going to happen. And the idea that we're going to have that next year is not going to be affected as well when cold and flu season comes back in the fall, that's the part that I think people are forgetting here. And that's why I think it's so important to finish this season, when there's a part where we feel safe for a little while, because the idea that we're going to have a next season that's going to be like normal, I don't buy that one yet either. Until there's a vaccine, I think we're going to be in this social distancing world for a while. And Christmas, that's right in the middle of the flu season, right? I don't know. Next year might be starting after the Super Bowl. It might be starting in March. I don't really know where things are going to look, what the world's going to look like then. So that's why when people say they really want to get this season in, that's why I believe that to be the case.
Yeah, especially the playoffs. I agree with you.
Yeah.
But how weird is it going to be, Ramona, to have the most important games of the season being played in a summer league environment with nobody there?
Yeah, I know. It reminds me, honestly, of Team USA. We go out to every summer, and we usually watch Team USA scrimmage and practice and stuff, and it's just like at UNLV, and there's some people in the stands and stuff. But I think what you're going to have to do is just turn up the music, and you're going to have it's going to be like a practice environment. That's how it's going to feel. It'll be really weird to have the NBA finals with no fans. Very weird. But I think we're past the point of caring about weird, right?
Yeah, right.
Everything's weird right now, and what's worse, to not get any kind of resolution or to not have it, I think
I'll take whatever I can get.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
At this point.
Yeah.
And right now, you know what, guys? You know what we got? We got The Last Dance. I'm
Right.
like The Last Dance beat writer right now. I'm trying to do a story, just beat the story every week.
Yeah, I mean, well, you can go back and watch the tape at least, and you have plenty of time to work on it. I mean, you get to see the screenings in advance, right? Because you work.
Yeah, I saw the first 8 episodes in advance. So, but see, my job as a reporter is like, I can't just write a review. That's lazy, right? So I'm trying to really report.
Well, you got to dig up something from Rodman's vacation to Vegas. We need to find out more.
Yeah, no, I don't think I want to know any more about that. Do you?
Kinda.
Because, I mean, the part where Carmen Electra says Michael Jordan knocks at the door and I go hide under the couch because I didn't want him to see me like that. I'm like, okay.
Well, the best part is all these guys, the Lambiers and all these guys that were ripped are ripping back. Some of them are ripping back.
Yeah.
Some of them are saying no. And Isaiah Thomas.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like another reality series playing out.
The hatred is still there.
Yeah, the hate is strong.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you this. This week's episodes 5 and 6 are 2 of my favorite of the whole series.
Oh, really?
I think these are awesome.
Okay.
There's a tease now. This is Kobe's involved, right? I'm hearing Kobe's involved.
In that episode, there's a lot on the building of the Jordan brand.
Right. All the commercials.
There's all the commercials. I don't know. It's really interesting. I think these 2 are pretty. They set up. They set up when he goes and plays baseball. This is really good stuff here. I would say 5, 6, and 7. I would say are probably my favorite episodes. It got really strong in the middle, and the first. That's not to say the first 4 weren't good. This is the part that I got really into when I watched it.
So you're saying the first 4 sucked, and now the rest is going to the best is yet to come? No, I know you didn't say that, but everybody loved the first 4.
I love the first
That's
4.
That's the best thing about this.
That's what I'm trying to tell you. The next ones are really, really good.
So the public loves it, right?
Yeah.
And you work there and you've seen it and you think that the best is yet to come. Can I quote you and put that in quotes?
Go ahead.
I may write a song about that. Sounds like a good song title.
I think I might have heard that one, though.
Well, Ramona, we're all in this together, so to speak, except we're not. You're in California. We're in Philadelphia. But we're all in this sports world without sports together. And all we can do is just hope that something positive happens soon and somebody makes a plan. But the bottom line is this, and we were talking yesterday with Spiro Ditas out there in California, and he said everybody's afraid to be the first sport that does this. Although NASCAR's announcing it, UFC, they're going to box. Of the major sports, do you believe that nobody wants to be the first to reopen?
Yeah, I think that if I were betting on it, I would say baseball would probably be the first back, just because they're like the originally socially distant sport, right? I mean, that's a little easier. The only thing that's hard about baseball is just the number of players involved. The bigger the number, the harder it is to maintain that safety. But I think because it's outdoors, because there isn't a lot of contact. The only point of contact is usually the ball, or if there's a collision or something, but it's not going to be as much as there would be in basketball or hockey, right? Mm-hmm. I feel like baseball is probably going to be the first of the 4 major ones, and then we'll see how that goes, right?
No, I agree with you because baseball needs. If baseball doesn't decide to have a season and they shut it down, I mean that would be not a disaster because they're the league right now that needs to get started before because the NBA and the NHL can finish because the bulk of their season is over. But if baseball doesn't start until if baseball doesn't start sometime in July, I think they're in trouble.
Yeah, and I don't know how you bring it back because as I said, this is probably coming back in the fall. We're going to have another round of this, another peak or 2 until we get a vaccine. I mean, so baseball kind of understands there's a window for them to get in here, and they still have to finish spring training. You got to build people back up. That's why I just feel like they have a little more pressure on them, whereas the NBA, they just need to, they need to squeeze in 6 weeks. That's not as hard, But I also think there's a lot more contact and there's a lot more issues involved. With sports where, how do you play defense? How do you rebound? How do you box out without contact constantly? So I agree with Spiro there. I don't think I think there's a sense of somebody wants to go first and see how it goes first, right? Because what everybody wants to avoid is starting back up and then having to shut down again, which is what's happened in the Chinese basketball league 3 times already.
Ramona Shelburne, ESPN, NBA expert out there with a baby and sitting at home with the shades closed, watching X-Files with the lights on and whatever else you do when you're home with a baby, and he's actually giving you 15 minutes to not worry about crying or doing you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, I did open the curtains as I was talking to you. I did feel kind of weird sitting in here in the dark room.
It's okay. We're sitting in the dark and the sun's out.
Hopefully she'll be packing for Orlando in a few weeks.
Exactly right.
Yep.
Yeah.
We're going to Disney World. We're going to Disney World, baby.
I don't think they're letting us come. I think they're going to be loving life without the media around them.
Well, Ramona, appreciate the time. Thanks so much for being on with us today. Thank you.
Yep.
There she is, Ramona Shell. Let's give her a roaring round of applause.